Before I open the meeting, I'll say our CAO is running a few minutes late. She will be here momentarily. I would begin by calling the meeting to order. And I will begin with our land acknowledgement. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki and the district of Sipekne'katik, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Okay. Test. Not often told I'm not loud enough, but I'll try. Okay, calling our meeting to order. We will now have a moment of silent contemplation. Okay. Moving on. Next is the approval of or amendments to the agenda, and I would just, at the beginning of the agenda, request that council consider adding the presentation of the award for our own Sue Surratt, so that she was not here when the other medals were presented. So if council's agreeable, I'll add that to the agenda. So, having said that, I'll be looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. So before we start the rest of our meeting, it is indeed my very great honor to present the Queen's Jubilee Medal, Platinum Jubilee Medal, to our Director of Finance, Sue Surratt. Very deserving member of our staff who goes above and beyond to keep all our financial matters straight, and we're very grateful for all that she does. So, Sue, if you would. So moving along, I would be looking for the approval of the minutes of our December 13th, 2022 regular meeting of Council for Policy and the December 21st, 2022 regular meeting of Council.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? Motion is carried. Okay, folks, we have a little bit of a pause here. We had a budget meeting here last night, and we had some technical issues which required the entire system be rebooted. We had hoped those were resolved. I've just been told by the deputy warden that our tech guy here has just told us we're not quite resolved. We are going to have to reboot the system, which will cause a slight delay until it boots back up again. We can talk loudly and continue the meeting, but the folks who are watching on live stream would not have access to that part of the meeting if we do that. So what I think, the mic still appears to be working. Until the system shuts down, we'll keep going, and my sincere apologies. We'll have to take a pause, I think, when it stops. So next up, we have correspondence for information. And councilors, the correspondence has been before you. Is there any item among that correspondence that any councilor wants to bring forward for further discussion or has any questions on? can't see the screen, but your screen's, yeah, okay. Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'd just like to acknowledge the thank you notes we received from the Caring and Sharing Food Bank and other organizations that are appreciative of our efforts to move them forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other correspondence that any counselor wishes to bring forward? Seeing none, we'll move along to correspondence for decision. And we have in front of us tonight the draft template letter to the residents of the future planned area regarding their zoning. And I'm not sure, John, are you taking this one? Number 3.
Thank you, Warden. So based on the discussion at the last PAC meeting, the letter has been amended, I think, with a little bit more clear information about what the meaning of the agricultural reserve zone is, and also at the end of the letter, there's more information about how to request a change if that's desired. So the letter, there's a number of bullets. They're not all relevant to every property. That's why it's so long. So this letter will go to all properties in the current unplanned area. And depending
Can we go
on
back down on the screen to the agricultural part of it?
depending on which zones are applicable, those ones will appear in the letter. And if you don't have, for example, Lakeshore Residential Zone on your property, that bullet won't appear. So that's the way it's structured.
Well, this does provide some more information than previously. It does say that non-farm dwellings and other uses not related to agriculture are not permitted. It is true they can be considered by development agreement, but that's, yeah. And it does tell you that you will need an agrologist study. So I guess I would look to council and see what your thoughts are on this. Could we scroll down to where we get the information on what to do if you disagree?
Yeah, it's 2 paragraphs up a little bit. No, yeah, those last 2 there.
I'm wondering, seeing no one wishing to speak, I'm wondering, not everyone has access to email and that, and I understand they can write a letter. Could we provide a phone number if they have questions or want further information?
There is one at the bottom of the second paragraph.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm hoping that provides more information. Is there any, okay, Councillor Rhino.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. Last Tuesday, executive, I was on COVID precautions and could not participate.
Keith, would you speak into your mic? We're having a hard time hearing you.
Last Tuesday, I wasn't in attendance here in council chambers due to COVID precautions. But when I followed along on the YouTube channel, I thought I heard the cost of these letters going out, what the total cost of it is. Could somebody refresh me on what that was?
Well, it's just over $1 a letter, so I think there's 6,000 letters, so it'll be several $1,000s.
Several $1,000s. Okay, well, maybe I didn't have my hearing aids turned up. I thought it said $8,000.
I'm not sure it would be quite 8, but it might be more than 7. I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's not just the postage cost; it's also the actual envelopes and the printing and so on.
So we're close to $8,000, not
Over
correct?
6, up to 8.
good. Well, later on in the evening, I'll be introducing a motion that may make part of this letter redundant. So anyway, thank you for the information.
Counselor Garden Cole?
Thank you, Madam Warden, through you. I know that the phone number is at the bottom of the second paragraph there. I think it would be better to have it at the end of the upper paragraph, so that when it says that you can email to contact the Planning and Development Department, the phone number, they'd be there as well. Just
can certainly do that,
because it's clearer for people.
Sure.
You can email, but if you can't email, then call this number, rather than go through another paragraph and then put the phone number.
Is that something, John, that requires a motion, or can that
No,
change?
I think we can just make that change.
Any
That's-
other comments on the letter?
Not for now, thank you.
Okay, do we need a motion to approve the letter? We've already moved that it be sent. It is for decision, so Counselor Mitchell.
Just to follow up on Counselor Garden Cole, is there an extension or somebody in particular they should be talking to, or can be just anybody in the department?
No, through you, Warden, that would be the general number, so then that call would be directed to one of the planners or myself.
Nobody in Pacific?
No, and, you know, it depends on, we don't want people to be put off, so if a call comes in, we want it dealt with that day instead of, you know, the person may be out or what have you, so just to make sure that it'll get covered.
Okay, thank you.
So if someone would be prepared to move that, I've just been told we are going to reboot the system, so.
I would move the letter.
Moved by Counselor Green, seconded by Counselor Musa. Is there any further discussion? Question's been called. Let's go to the vote before we lose the system. And the motion has passed unanimously. So, the next item on correspondence for decision we're still there. CAO.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The next item on your correspondence for decision is from Counselor Tingley. It's an email that was sent to yourself and myself looking for the leave of council to attend some meetings virtually in the month of February. Counselor Tingley has booked vacation days for about 20 days in February, but is able to join the meetings virtually. Our policy states that council, we do have the ability to have counselors join virtually. That was one of the requirements of your new system. So we can do that. We've tested it quite recently. But it does require the approval of council to approve the virtual attendance.
So, council, what is your wish? Counselor Rhino.
Well, call me old school, but I like face-to-face meetings. I'm not a virtual fan if we can be here. We had those Zoom meetings when COVID was on and the restrictions were there. Me personally, I do believe that I was put in as a counselor by the people to be here in council chambers when meetings took place. And we all have our schedule set out for the year, and we can, to me, I would plan a vacation all around that, or I would accept that if I missed one or two meetings, that I would not be there. So I will not be in favor of this whatsoever. I mean, to me, I'm a counselor, this comes first, and my vacation, whatever comes second. Thank you.
Deputy Warden Perry.
I disagree. I think we have the means, it's been put in our policy for this. We are counselors, but we also have day jobs and we have lives. And if Counselor Tingley wants to take time out of his vacation to come in here and still represent the people of Lance, I believe he should have every opportunity. We are entering the winter season, and some people have to drive hundreds of kilometers to make it here to council chambers. And if the roads are dangerous and the RCMP say stay off the roads, or people are ill or sick, that those people who live far away should have the ability to be represented as well. So I will be supporting this motion to give him the ability to come in remotely.
Thank you. We do not have a motion on the floor. Is someone prepared to move a motion? Deputy Warden.
I will move that we accept the request by Councillor Tingley.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Hebb.
Just clarification, Warden. Will Councillor Tinkley be able to vote in this, or would this be a conflict? He can vote on it. Good, thank you.
There would be no pecuniary interest one way or the other, so he is able to vote. Any further discussion?
Question on the motion.
The question's been called. And the vote is in. It has passed by a vote of 10-1, with Councillor Rhino voting nay. We're doing well. The system is still with us. Do we know when exactly we're going to lose it? Okay. All right. That concludes correspondence for decision. We are not yet at the hour of 7:30, so we will move on to the Municipal Firefighter Long Service Awards annual reports. And I'm not sure who's taking this one. Adam.
Thank you, Madam Warden. As Council recalls, you've updated your policy and are now providing 10 and 15-year service medals to the members of the East Hants Fire Service that have reached those thresholds. So this past year, staff have provided those medals to the departments, to the local councillors to pass at the department. So each year, what you're going to see moving forward is a list come forward to council of those names of the recipients, just as a additional recognition piece. So really, in front of you today is the list of the 2022 recipients, and then we'll be looking at moving forward with 2023. So it's really an info item for council.
Thank you, Adam. It's certainly good to see the list and see how many folks in our communities do volunteer and have volunteered for this many years, providing a much-needed service. So the next item is committee reports. And the first report is Corporate and Residential Services Committee report. And we'll go to the vice chair, as the chair was absent on Tuesday, and over to you, Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, the committee held its regular meeting on January 17th, 2023 in council chambers. The following motion is coming forward as a result of this meeting. Council procedure policy. At the December 21st, 2022 regular meeting, council gave staff direction to proceed with updates to the council procedure sections 4.1, 3.7, 3.2, 10, 3.2, and 4. Staff have prepared the updates to enable council to proceed to give the required notice and approval to these changes. The Corporate and Residential Services Committee recommends that council approve the council procedural policy as attached to the Executive Committee agenda dated January 17th, 2023. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously.
The next item is 2023-2024 budget presentation, tax analysis, and business plans. The CAO, Director of Finance and Manager of Finance, gave a verbal report on the 2023-2024 budget and tax analysis and 2023-2024 operational business plans. The presentation of the operational business plans will continue at the next budget meeting scheduled January 24th, 2023. Staff answered questions from councilors. As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. So moving along, watch my time here, that takes us to Planning Advisory Committee. Over to you, Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The committee held its regular meeting on January 17, 2023 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of this meeting. First item, Withrows Farm Market Limited, discharge of development agreement. The municipality has received an application from Withrows Farm Market to discharge an existing development agreement for their market in Belnan. The existing development agreement permits a one-story expansion with a maximum gross floor area of 1,800 square feet. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council approve the discharge agreement of lands located at 1040 Highway 214 Belnan to enable the subject property to be regulated by the provisions of the land use bylaw. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Head. Is there any discussion on the motion? Question's been called. We'll go to the vote. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Councillor.
Plan 2-00, Plan 20-001, Elmsville Lumber Company Limited, redesignation and rezoning for containerized biochar production facility. Elmsville Lumber initially submitted an application for a nearly 5,000 square meter biochar production facility in August of 2020. The application consisted of two parts: the redesignation and rezoning of a portion of the applicant's land to industrial commercial, IC, and a substantial amendment to the existing development agreement. The applicant has amended their application for the development agreement amendment to enable a pilot-scale containerized biochar production facility. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council authorize staff to schedule a public information meeting to consider an application from Elmsville Lumber Company Limited to permit a containerized biochar production facility. As chair of the committee, I so move.
Moved and seconded by Councillor Green. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Question.
The question has been called. And the motion has passed by a vote of 7-4, with Councillors Musa, Rhino, Garden Cole, and myself voting nay, and everyone else voting yay. Moving along, Councillor Mitchell.
Item 3, plan update, community engagement report. Staff updated PAC on community consultation held in November 2022 regarding the draft East Stance official community plan. A draft letter to be sent to all affected property owners was also reviewed by PAC.
And I believe that's the letter we already reviewed under correspondence for decision, which makes this redundant, am I correct? We've already reviewed the letter and made the motion.
Okay, the letter's already reviewed, so we'll leave it as that. The last item, item number 4, is the mixed-use center zone review, and that'll be dealt with the public hearing. As chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by the deputy warden. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary? Motion is carried. Moving right along, we will go to Parks, Recreation, and Culture. Councillor Garden Cole. I'm trying.
The committee held its regular meeting on January 17th, 2022 in council chambers. The following motions are coming forward as a result of this meeting. Item 1, Bylaw F 400-8, an amendment to Bylaw F 400 Tax Exemption Bylaw. The municipality of the District of East Hants enacted Bylaw F-400, a bylaw that exempts nonprofit and charitable organizations from paying property tax. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends that council give first reading to Bylaw F-408, an amendment to Bylaw F-400, Tax Exemption Bylaw, and be amended to reflect the following changes. Remove property number 018-55654, Northfield Community Club. Add property number 008-38918, Lions Memorial Park Society. Update property ownership for property number 04720601 from Upper Nine Mile River Community Hall Association to East Hants Ground Search and Rescue. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Mitchell. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Garden-Cole.
Item number 2, insurance grant. In December 2022, staff presented a report with updates and recommended policy changes to the community grant program. During the review, staff observed that at least 50% or more of the community grants issued over the past 3 years were for insurance. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends that council direct staff to prepare a not-for-profit insurance grant policy and remove the requirement for municipal recognition, and that 100% of insurance policy costs up to a maximum of $1,500, and remove insurance funding from existing municipal grant programs, and update applicable policies to be brought back to council. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Is there any discussion? Counselor Rhino.
Yes, thank you, Madam. Well, what is the total allowance in that for that fund?
Alana?
Through you, Madam Warden, for the initial year, we've actually set it up that we're going to allocate $15,000 from reserve until we know the success of the program and how many people will actually take advantage of it.
I guess then my question was, if we have a run on the bank of more than $15,000, are we gonna say, you know, are we gonna cut them off, the ones that are laid off or that are past that 15, you know, what can we do for them?
Through you, Madam Warden, the idea behind that, and I think it may have come up when we talked about it at executive, was that if someone came in or a group came in with a request and we were at that $15,000, we would entertain it no differently than ones that we get right now after deadlines through a staff report or something like that. So we would actually entertain those and then bring them back to council for discussion.
Okay, do you anticipate that there could be an overage of 15,000 ask?
Through staff discussion, we felt that 15,000 was a reasonable amount, but obviously we're not entirely sure until such time that it comes in. But looking at what we are putting out in insurance funding right now and then padding that a bit, we felt that that was a fairly good projection.
And would we have a reserve if that did go over the 15,000 asked? Is there a reserve that we can possibly consider using?
I believe so. I think we would again come back with options for that.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions?
Question.
The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Back to you, Counselor Garden-Cole.
Item number 3, Center Rodden Hall update. The Parks, Recreation, and Culture Committee recommends to council that staff be authorized to set up another community meeting to meet with the residents of Center Rodden to discuss the possible options around the Center Rodden Hall. As Vice Chair of the committee, I so move.
Seconded by Counselor Hebb. Is there any discussion on the motion? The question has been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Folks, we've now reached the hour of 7:30, and we do have a public hearing scheduled for that, so we'll come back to, all right, we'll do the adoption of the report first. Councilor
As Vice Chair of the committee, I move the adoption of this report.
Seconded by Councilor Mitchell. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. We will now go to our public hearing. Councilor Eisner.
Through you, Chairperson, to the warden, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest. A family member owns property in that area.
Okay, thank you,
That they
Councilor.
be excused if I could.
Councilor, or Shirley will have you sign the book. Now, does he have to leave his seat? Yeah. Councilor Eisner, once you sign the book, you'll have to leave chambers and just go into the gallery for this item. Councilors, this evening we have one item on the public hearing agenda. The purpose of this hearing is for council to hear input from the public prior to making a decision on the proposal. To the members of the public who have chosen to participate this evening, welcome. Please note that council's procedural policy requires that you not cheer, boo, clap, or otherwise disrupt the hearing. Anyone who wishes to comment or ask questions will be provided an opportunity to do so. Tonight, council may approve, reject, or defer its decision on the proposal to a later date. Council approval is required for the proposal to proceed. I will now ask the municipal clerk to outline when the public hearing advertisements were published.
Madam Warden, a public hearing notice appeared in the January 10th and 17th editions of the Chronicle Herald. The notices described the proposal, they gave the date and time of this public hearing, and indicated that staff reports were available to the public.
Thank you. Okay, councilors, the public hearing this evening is to consider amendments to the municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw related to the mixed-use center designation and zone. I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his report.
Planning Advisory Committee has considered the proposal on behalf of Municipal Council. The committee has reviewed staff reports, completed their evaluation, and will make a recommendation to council during this hearing. Madam Warden, through you, I would now ask staff to present their final report on the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So through the current plan update project, Municipal Council requested a review of the mixed-use center designation and zone that's applicable mostly in Enfield, but also some in Elmsdale. This review was initiated as a result of some concerns related to the scale of development that we're now seeing. In addition, our economic and business development section indicated concern with the lack of leasable commercial space in projects to date. So council subsequently directed that the review take place as a standalone project outside of the current review process. And just a bit of background on the mixed-use center zone. This was something that was created during the 2016 plan review. And at that time, the area along Highway 2 from about Strides down to just above the Magnolia Care Facility was identified as an appropriate area for medium-density mixed-use growth. And that was after, a number of public meetings or meetings held in Enfield and Elmsdale at the, community visioning stage, and then again when there were draft regulations. The review was also seen as an opportunity at that time to remove some zoning that could cause incompatible land uses to move into the area. And there was some industrial commercial zoning, for example, on that stretch of Highway 2. And the pink area outlines the current extent of the mixed-use center designation and zone. And I guess just for reference, the The blue indicates current buildings, and the yellow are either under construction or proposed with either a permit or site plan approval. So with respect to height, the way the current regulations are written, they permit a mixed-use capable building. And mixed-use capable means the ground floor has a height of at least 10 feet so that it could be used for a commercial business, and it's also accessible at grade. But it doesn't actually have to be commercial. It just has to be ready to accept commercial development. And those buildings can be up to 4 stories or 15 meters where the property does not abut a residential neighborhood zone, which would be R1 or R2 in our case. And the limit is 3 stories or 12 meters where the property abuts a residential neighborhood zone or the proposed building is not mixed use capable. Now, one of the issues that's come up is that 12 meters can actually accommodate a 4-story building if based on certain type of construction, and 15 meters can accommodate a 5-story building. So the concern in particular is with the area highlighted in red on the map there, where council is considering a lower height limit. With respect to commercial space, of the approximately 12 proposed buildings so far in the zone, only one is actually proposed to be mixed use with ground floor commercial, and there's one other that's entirely commercial. And again, our economic and business development section has identified a need. I guess quite often they're talking to people looking to lease space in the community and can't find it. So a second amendment would require at least 50% of all these new buildings would have to have ground floor commercial. And that regulation wouldn't just apply to that red area I just showed you, it would apply to all mixed-use center properties. So then there are a couple of amendments to the municipal planning strategy policy, and the more detailed versions are appended to the staff report that show them in the context of the policies where they live. And then also a couple of amendments to the land use bylaw to make this happen. So this one would identify that area in the red box as the area where the 3-story limit applies. And then there would be a second text amendment that indicates that 50% of the ground floor has to be commercial space. In terms of citizen engagement, as part of the review process for MPS amendments, a public information meeting was required to hear input from the community. And so as part of that, we informed all owners that had an MC zone property as well as anybody within 300 meters of an MC zone property. And that meeting was held on November 1st. And the meeting was also advertised in addition to the newspaper, the municipal website, and social media. 8 members of the public attended along with 2 councillors. And there were a number of comments made, whether the development in process will have to comply with the new regs, anything that currently has a building permit or is applied for site plan approval would not have to comply with these new regulations. They would be able to follow the old regulations through. There are also concerns raised with Highway 2 traffic and needed improvements at intersections, lights. Concerns raised with larger buildings near single unit dwellings. It was questioned if the province would freeze development along Highway 2 because of traffic. Concern about downzoning from existing MC zone property owners who feel that, lowering the height limit to 3 stories on their properties would devalue the property. There was some excitement expressed at a future walkable area with shops and services. Question whether developers would upkeep their properties long term. And also just a general question about the validity of traffic impact studies. So following first reading, a survey was circulated to all owners of property zoned MC as well as those, again, within 300 meters. And this map just shows the red are the properties zoned MC, and then the wider yellow are all the properties that would be captured in that 300-meter mail-out. And in total, we mailed out 354 questionnaires. We received 19 back, or 5.4%. And the responses are posted with the report. And like the public information meeting, there was a variety of comments made. Some people commenting that they don't want to live in a higher density community. One that agreed with the 3-story limit, but not 50% commercial requirement. Current development exceeds infrastructure capacity and wondering what the municipal plan is to deal with that. That the 3-story rule should be retroactive, which of course it can't be, as I explained a little while ago. Agree with the height limit, wanted to keep the current feel of the community, and Enfield should be developed to a maximum potential. High density development is the future. concerned about the amount and speed of traffic, wondering whether any of this would be low-income housing, and questioning green space in the mixed use. Some cynicism that development would be approved anyway. No jobs in the area and rents are too high. Sackville, here we come was another comment. Agree with the 3-story limit and commercial space is needed. Against changes that reduce the ease of growth. The community would benefit from restaurants and cafes. Playgrounds, outdoor space needed, and community gardens. Turning lanes and crosswalk needed at White Road and Concord Way for pedestrian safety. Oppose the changes that will devalue land being singled out, and there is a housing crisis. A lack of commercial space. Parking must allow 2 vehicles per apartment plus customer space. And we did a parking review, council might remember, more than a year ago now, I think, where the parking requirement for these buildings is 1.5 spaces per unit, plus 1 unit for every 1 space for every 7 units for visitor parking, which compared to other municipalities is actually quite high. Construction should be limited during day and should consider traffic management. Trees should be preserved wherever possible. Changes would limit growth and impact businesses. Nova Scotia already has some of the highest rents. Concerned about the future traffic on Lacey Ann. Concerns at the public information meeting were about properties on the west side of Highway 2, therefore regulations on the east side of Highway 2 shouldn't change. And that was discussed at the last PAC meeting. In addition to the advertisements outlined by the clerk, information regarding the public hearing was also placed on the municipal website and social media. And again, letters were sent to that same mail-out area within 300 meters of all MC zone properties. So to conclude, amendments have been drafted that would restrict the height of new buildings in the southern end of the mixed-use center zone to 3 stories, require at least 50% of ground floors to be commercial on all MC zone properties, and a public information meeting has been held, staff evaluation completed, and the next step is tonight's public hearing. Thank you, Madam Warden.
Thank you, John. I will now open the floor for comments and questions. If you are viewing the YouTube live stream, you may use the YouTube chat feature, which is being monitored. But first, does anyone attending in person have any questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment.
Would you please come to the mic and state your name and I believe the address?
My name is Ralph Doncaster. I reside at 76 Hemlock Drive in Elmsdale. My comment is regarding 7.5.3, subsection D, the part about roofs. The subsection I of that, it makes a reference to houses commonly having roof pitches of 812. However, anyone that's done anything with houses knows around here that 412 to 612 is far more common than 812. And also, it doesn't seem to actually, it's not mandatory at all, so I don't see what the point of even including that is, since it is just a comment. More importantly, though, the section II that requires changes, visual changes and architectural changes to roof structures, such as gables, dormers, etc. I think that would have a negative impact on development of renewable energy, particularly solar panels. So I, amongst my businesses, do solar panel installs, and a flat single pitch roof is one of the best types of roofs to install solar panels on. When you start adding dormers and gables and that, you reduce the usable area for solar panels. So to use an example that was even referenced in here, the Macmillan Center, for instance, where it has a rather flat single pitch roof without much architectural changes, that type is much better for solar. Whereas if new development, you make if you break up the roof pitches a lot, then you make it much more difficult to have those properties install solar panels.
Thank you. John, you have a comment?
Sure. Well, I would just briefly comment that what the gentleman was just talking about are some of the architectural design requirements, and they were beyond the scope of this review, but I mean, they sound like interesting comments to me, and perhaps something we could consider in a future update.
Anything further, Mr. Doncaster?
No, that's fine.
Does any other member of the public have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I would ask if we have any comments or questions from the YouTube channel. We do not. Does any member of staff have any final comments?
No, Madam Warden.
Nothing from staff. I would now ask the chair of the Planning Advisory Committee to present his committee's recommendation.
Planning, excuse me. Planning Advisory Committee recommends that council give second reading to the amendments to the Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw, which changed the mixed-use center MC designation and zone by restricting the height of new buildings in the prescribed area to 3 stories and require a minimum of 50% of the ground floor area of all new buildings be commercial. As chair of PAC, I so move.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Garden Cole. Are there any final questions or comments from municipal councillors? Councillor Musa.
Just, John, can you please highlight which area is going to be affected? Is the whole area or just part of it?
Sorry, John. Oops.
So through you, Madam Warden, the pink area, the 50% requirement would apply to all the properties that are colored pink here.
Yeah.
But the 3-story limit would only apply to the properties up to here. In this area here. And that's shown on, well, basically
Oh,
these
it's one
ones.
square.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That all, Councillor Musa?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Tingley.
Through the chair, I just have some questions, and I'm just wondering if there's some kind of a compromise or something we can do here. My concern with this is that the original MPS, I understood it to list that the way development was permitted in this area at the time would positively affect housing, infrastructure, the environment, the climate, future planning for the transit service we plan to have here, parks, economic and business development.
Councillor Tingley, we can't hear you. If you could speak into the
Okay.
mic, please.
My understanding is that in the original MPS, it stated that the development that was permitted in the original MPS would positively impact housing, infrastructure, the environment, climate, the future planning around the transit service, parks, economic and business development, commercial development, police, fire departments would benefit from it, property tax. And I understand the concerns of the citizens, and I don't know if there's any kind of compromise that can be made here, but, you know, in Canada, and including Nova Scotia, we're in a housing crisis. And CMHC issued a report June 2022 saying 3.5 million housing units are required in Canada. And until that is achieved, affordable housing will not be achieved. So by backtracking on this completely, we're not going to have the positive impact on those items that were originally identified in the original municipal plan. And that plan, we were required to have a plan as per the Municipal Government Act. We just don't sit here and make willy-nilly decisions. And what went into that plan is advice from planners, accountants, all the staff, engineers, citizens. There was a citizens panel. It was a very thorough document. And this was done in 2016. Now we're going backwards in a time when we have a housing crisis. I certainly don't want to discount the people, the 8 people that showed up at the public meeting, or the 19 or whatever people responded to the surveys, or certainly the people here in the gallery. They all deserve to have a say here. But is there any room for a compromise here at all? Because it's going to have consequences. These decisions have consequences on all the items outlined in the original MPS. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Counselor. I can turn it over to you, John, but I think any compromise at this point would have to be a motion of council, and difficult during a public hearing but we'll carry on. Did you want to comment, John?
Sure, Madam Warden. Just in terms of process, this was discussed at PAC, where the committee considered, I guess, compromising by not requiring the reduction in height limit on the east side of Highway 2, or I guess on this map it would be on the bottom side here, where it was perceived that there's less public concern. But that motion was defeated at PAC. I mean, it could come back here tonight, I guess, but right now, that compromise was explored at PAC, and it was turned down.
Thank you. Counselor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you, I wasn't going to speak about this tonight, but now I am. This is the compromise. In 2016, this was zoned MUC zoning, and all that came with that. We've seen the results of the MUC zoning. The residents have seen it. People coming down through Enfield has seen what MUC zoning looks like. Might not look like what council might have thought it was going to look like when they put it in place with MUC zoning. So this is the compromise. Going down one story, not that drastic. We're not telling them that that we have to go back to R2 there, or whatever the previous zoning was. And I might add that we're not turning the wheels back for generations of these, people talking about, their family owned the properties for generations. This zoning has only been in place since 2016. And during that time, we have seen what it looks like and what it is going to look like in the future. And when people talk about that it's going to look like Sackville, well, actually, a lot of those yellow buildings there will go ahead and be built at the 4-story level. And the only thing that makes it not look like Sackville, or it won't look like Sackville when all those buildings are built, is that there's no 4-lane highway going down between them. It's still only going to be the 2 lanes to accommodate all these people living in these apartments. Now, when you talk about the housing crisis, I am not going to deny it. But I'm not sure at what point anybody decided that Enfield was going to be solely responsible for solving the housing crisis in this area. First of all, this is not affordable housing in any shape or form, and it won't be. Families are leaving the Enfield schools. I say this all the time because they are ousted out of their rental properties and there's no affordable housing to be had. And that's these apartments are not going to solve that. But Enfield has provided more apartments than their share in the previous, in recent years. We've got 3 apartments going up across from the police station. We've got an apartment building going up next to the Magnolia. We've just had a 10-unit apartment building finish up down by the hardware store. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 8 apartment buildings right there by the end of White Road that have already been submitted for approval. So if we're not doing our share to cure the housing crisis, I don't know what more we can do. Put a few more apartment buildings up there at 3 stories instead of 4, that's the compromise. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any further questions or comments from members of council? Counselor Tingley.
Well, I'd just like to respond to Councillor Garden Cole. I agree with her. Enfield is definitely not solely responsible for solving the housing crisis. Everybody is. Lance, Elmsdale, everybody is. I was just pointing out that the CMHC report in June 2022 stated that the affordability issue is not going to be resolved until these housing units are built. And by restricting what we already have in place is going to have consequences. And they're not going to have positive consequences. Infield is not going to change, everything. But this really isn't a compromise. We already have a plan, and we should be following it.
Counselor, to the motion, please.
Through the motion? Okay.
To the-
Well, I think I've pretty well stated how I feel about it. Can I bring that motion that we had the other day up again for consideration? Is that possible?
Well,
To-
it
to-
was not a recommendation from PAC. It was defeated at PAC.
Are you allowed to?
We'll go to the CAO. At a
Can I
public
make-
hearing? There is a motion on the floor. John?
Yeah, so I think the only way to do it at this stage would be to try to amend the motion to limit the height restrictions being proposed to the west side within the red area. So basically, it would just apply to the top side of Highway 2 in this area. I think that motion would be in order.
So that would be an amendment that would be in order, Counselor.
I'd
It
like
was
to,
defeated at committee, I will remind you.
and it might be defeated here, but I do passionately feel, I do respect the residents that are here tonight, but I hope they consider this as well. And I would like to see us try to compromise on this, and I'll make that motion again, that we not have this restriction on the west side. We just keep the restrictions on the east side.
That would be the height restriction?
The height restriction, yeah. Oh, I totally agree with having commercial, 50% commercial on the bottom floor. And anything else we can do to improve the aesthetics or the development there, I'm fully for that. But anything we can do to not totally restrict this fully in that area, I'd like to try to do. So that's my amended motion.
That's the amendment. Okay, counselors, do we have a seconder for the amendment? Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Second. The amendment has been seconded. I'm now going to go to Counselor Musa, who was on to speak prior to the amendment, so I'm going to allow him some leeway.
Thank you. Just a comment about what happened since that plan review happened. And I mentioned it at the first day that everybody who owned property is gonna come with a site plan approval before it passed. And all those yellow have passed before the planning done. So we're only single on 3 properties that are attached to their homes, and probably they didn't want, if they did site plan approval, we wouldn't be here today. Everything will be done. So there's those people that they don't want to sell their properties, and they're attached to them, and they're penalizing them for that. I know it's gonna pass, but I want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Rhino.
To the amendment, I cannot support the amendment. Oftentimes, I rely on the counselor from the area, because the counselor from the area best knows that area, best knows the people from the area, and it seems to me that the counselor has stated that what the people are wishing and are upset about. So I will not support this amendment, because I do believe the counselor from that area has a good handle on her area. Thank you.
Counselor Mitchell.
Yes, thank you, Madam Warden. I'm just looking through staff to give me a clarification on the amendment. What is the west and what is the east?
Thank you, Madam Warden. So on this map, the west would be on the, I guess, top. If you sort of look at Highway 2 here,
Okay,
I would consider this the west side and this the east side.
okay. And that corresponds to his amendment?
It does. That as I understand it, the way the amendment was worded is that these new restrictions would not apply to the east side. They would only apply to the west side in terms of height.
Thank you for the clarification.
Counselor Tingley?
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to respond to Councillor Rhino's comment. I do have utmost respect for Councillor Garden-Cole's opinion, and she's an excellent councillor. I don't want to have a different opinion than her. I don't want to have a different opinion than the people that are here maybe wanting this to all be restricted to 3 stories. But I feel I'm elected to represent, to serve my district, but to also represent the entire municipality. And, you know, I mentioned those positive impacts that allowing this type of development has on the municipality. And that's why I'm making the amendment. And also, there is a housing crisis, and I think everybody needs to do their part. And, you know, we'll be constructing apartment buildings in Lance. And we have constructed, you know, one large one here within the last year. There'll be more go up. You know, at this stage, when they're saying it'll take till 2030 to have any impact on the need for housing and getting back to affordable housing, I'm not that upset about having one more story to create those housing units. But, you know, utmost respect for Councillor Garden-Cole and the people that are here tonight.
Thank you, Counselor. Any further counselors wishing to join the discussion?
Question on the amendment.
Okay. On the amendment. Someone has not voted. Oh, yes, Counselor Eisner declared a conflict. So the amendment has failed by a vote of 6-4, with Counselor McPhee, Counselor Hebb, Counselor Rhino, Counselor Garden-Cole, myself, and Counselor Green voting nay. So we are now back to the main motion. Does any counselor have any comments or questions on the original motion?
Question on the main motion.
The question has been called. Missing one vote. And the motion has passed by a vote of 7-3, with Deputy Warden Perry, Counselor Mitchell, and Counselor Tingley voting nay. That concludes tonight's public hearing. I would thank everyone for attending. Okay, folks, following the public hearing, I was going to say we'll return to committee reports, but I guess we are now finished the committee reports, and we are at the time of the warden's report. So I would turn the chair over to the deputy warden as I search for my notes that I did make. Okay. Well, January has been probably a pretty much par for the course month. Not a lot of outside meetings or anything. Certainly enjoyed the holiday break and a little rest and relaxation. On January the 9th, I attended the polling district meeting in Kennecott. On the 11th, I attended the polling district meeting in Mount Uniacke and the one in Elmsdale on the 12th. Council has now entered into our budget meetings, and that will keep us busy for the rest of this month and into February. I do report that we are in ongoing discussions with our Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, and just for public interest, I would report that the Federation for a number of months here has been proposing significant change to the way they operate in their governance model. It has not been the view of this council that these proposed changes are good for East Hants or indeed for the majority of municipalities in Nova Scotia. We had requested that the next meeting that was to be held to discuss these would be a hybrid meeting allowing virtual and in-person attendance. That was refused, with the response being that the bylaws didn't allow for virtual meetings, although that is the only type of meetings we had during COVID. I'll leave that there. So a meeting was set for tomorrow at the Westin from 10 o'clock in the morning till 4 in the afternoon to do this. That immediately eliminated the ability of many councillors to attend, because for most councils this is not a full-time job, and many people cannot get a day off work with 30 days notice to attend these meetings. However, the meeting was set. Now, you've all seen the weather warnings for tomorrow. In the Halifax area, wind gusts and winds of up to 135 kilometers an hour with heavy, heavy rains. So late this afternoon, we received an email from NSFM asking if we still plan to go based on the weather, to which I sent a strongly worded reply saying that I did not think it would be acceptable or appropriate to proceed with the meeting given the weather warnings that were in place and expecting people to travel from all around the province. Well, we got the response, folks. And I'll just read a bit of it to you. The NSFM board understands the concerns around the inclement weather forecast for tomorrow. Knowing the system is approaching, we reached out to those who have registered for the meeting for their thoughts on the impending weather. We have heard back that many registrants have already traveled into the city with the anticipation that the meeting will occur. We acknowledge that some registrants who plan to travel in the morning have concerns about the weather. If weather in the morning is such that you do not feel safe for travel, please do not. In an effort to recognize the considerable time and cost contributed by those registered, we are already in HRM. The meeting will proceed as planned. For those registered who decide not to come due to unsafe travel conditions, we want to assure you that if we do not achieve a quorum for the meeting, we will reschedule the meeting for a later date. Thank you for your patience. Of all the municipalities in this province, every elected councillor is a member of the NSFM, but the quorum for this meeting to proceed tomorrow is 25. So that is my rant. I don't know if I will make the meeting to represent our views tomorrow, because I do feel it's important, but it's not worth risking my life. And I just wanted to share that with the public, because I'm not sure it's always understood the difficult waters we sometimes navigate with other organizations as well. And to have an organization supposedly representing all municipalities of this province be so callous as to say, we're not going to cancel a meeting, we're going to expect folks to travel from all over this province to a meeting in the middle of the day in January with the weather that's forecast tomorrow, speaks to me as an organization that, quite frankly, has lost its way. And so I just wanted to make that comment. Now that I have had that rant, that really concludes my warden's report. I don't know if I'll be attending a meeting tomorrow or not. It will certainly depend on the weather when I get up in the morning. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anyone has them on any of the meetings or anything that's happened this month.
First question comes from Councillor Reiner.
Is there an opportunity to use Zoom in?
No, there is not. NSFM have informed us that we are unable to have a hybrid meeting because their bylaws do not allow it, although I did research some articles in the legislation that created the body that I believe disproves that. If I'm not there, I certainly will not have an opportunity to raise that.
If I may, I guess for me that, you know, that doesn't bode very well. You know, we as a council ourselves, we have made arrangements here tonight to be Zoomed in or whatever. But a meeting such as that and a big entity such as the NFSM, and they don't do that, that blows my mind. Thank you.
I would comment that their bylaws specifically allow the board to meet virtually. They do not specify that the membership can make virtually, but neither do they specify that the membership cannot meet virtually.
Next question from Councillor Garden-Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we already had this meeting started out. This process started out with us meeting virtually. So it doesn't make any sense. But I'm just commenting on that. Thanks.
That is one of the few discrepancies in the operational procedures. But I certainly, as much as I would like to take the floor, I have been contacted by other municipalities who have similar feelings as we do about these changes. And we were hoping to have enough people there to perhaps make a difference. I don't believe that will happen now. And I believe, I'm sorry, but I believe that's why they're going ahead with the meeting, because there will be even less representation of the membership of NSFM. And NSFM has done good things in the past for this municipality and all municipalities. Their fees have, for membership, have increased somewhere around 20% over the last 2 years. As I said the other night, I have not seen a 20% increase in the deliverables from this organization. And what we decide to do, we never want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I will be looking for a fulsome discussion around our membership going forward in NSFM at a later date.
Question or comment from the CAO.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. To address Councillor Garden-Cole's question, I believe their intent was that, because they did start this process virtually, and they were hoping to have all of the bylaw amendments voted on at that virtual meeting, and then their intent was to ratify those at the in-person meeting in November when they have their AGM, where the first meeting went off the rails and they didn't get through their list. And I think the board at that time kind of realized that this wasn't, there was more communication needed around this issue. They didn't get those put through in order to ratify them at their in-person conference per their bylaws. So I think that's the discrepancy in the communication now.
Now, that concludes my report, but I just simply felt that I wanted to put that out there, and that I do feel that, you know, with the weather that's in the forecast tomorrow, I just find it shameful that they're proceeding as they are. Thank you.
Back to you, Warden.
Thank you very much. We will now move to business from councillors. I believe I started over here last time, so we'll start this time with Councillor Tingley.
Nothing major to report. Usual phone calls, emails from some residents, reaching out to staff when I need help, and staff are always very quick to respond and very helpful. But just a routine month so far this month, so that's about it for me.
Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I want to move a motion to ask staff to bring a report about creating a bylaw for blasting in East Hants.
Maybe you could give some background, Counselor Musa, around the issues that are prompting the
Yeah,
motion?
well, I know the blasting is regulated by the province, but Halifax have a bylaw, and I forwarded it to everybody to read, and it's a good bylaw to have. I don't know about the enforcement, but the people of Mount Uniacke feels that they need some protection. There is a lot of people blasting, and when you blast a black rock, when you blast on a rock, like it's all rocky land over there, and I sent some email to council about people having their picture flying off the walls, and it was all over Facebook. I don't know if staff have read the comment, but I feel there's something need to be done here. Thank you.
So Counselor Musa has moved that staff bring us a report
Yeah.
to look at introducing a blasting bylaw similar to that in HRM. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. Deputy Warden.
Speaking in full support of the motion, Mount Uniacke is surrounded by 2 quarries and a current development that has a blasting permit to blast for their own aggregate for roads. There's been 5 house shaking events in the span of 3.5 weeks, which has upset quite a few residents, knocking pictures off walls and even causing some minor damage to effects in people's homes. This blasting, if I understand my fellow councilor right, it's for blasting near residential areas. As they continue to go into their cut, Mount Uniacke is mostly bedrock, so it travels great distance, but as they go into their cuts and make their cuts deeper, it becomes a focused blast. And right now, it just seems to be the focus, if you go look at the aerial photos of all of these, are pointed directly at the residential side. If they come in from the other angle, it would be going into wilderness where there's nothing. This is going directly through the communities, through the subdivisions, with lots of new home construction and the building code where you have to cover your foundations with gyprock. It's very hard for homeowners to get the picture of the condition of their foundation pre and post blast. Notification is also part of the HRM bylaw, which is something that I think we should really look at. There was an incident in the community where one developer was blasting for a road. They gave 3 days notice. The residents asked for more, and the developer was more than happy to comply to give them an extra 3 or 4 days to be able to get their water samples and stuff. Blasting in an area that is serviced by personal wells, there has been loss of water from some residents, and also water that had no contaminants in it whatsoever in a former mining area like Mount Uniacke. There are wells that had no arsenic, and after a series of blasting, now the wells have arsenic. So now people are incurring an extra cost of putting filtration systems in their home to get rid of the arsenic and other heavy metals that were never present in their water for years. So I really support this motion, and I think it's something we have to look at. Everybody talks about what communities wanted and what they didn't want. Like Mount Uniacke didn't ask to have three blasting quarries and an asphalt plant put in it, right? I believe you look back, it's before my time, before Councillor Musa, but in most cases, the area councillors didn't want it either. But it's good for East Hants because aggregate is needed for development. But we all have to play our part in ensuring the people are protected as development goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. Any further comments? I would just comment before we go to the vote that one of these blasts that Councillor Musa mentions took place on our committee day My husband was at home in Upper Rawdon, and he could hear and feel the blast in the air. And so it was a fairly low ceiling. He was quite surprised that anyone would have been blasting with the ceiling that low. So I'm supporting the counselor's request. Any other comments? The question's been called. And the motion is passed unanimously. Anything further, Councillor Musa?
That's all, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Green?
Nothing at this time, much, Warden, only to welcome the public, which most of them are from District 6.
Deputy Warden Perry? Oops.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Musa took the biggest pressing issue in the community. Thank you for that. Going on, I want to say thank you to our I&O staff. There was new asphalt paving done along the #1 highway through the community, and the current paint that was laid on that is invisible as soon as there's any moisture on the ground. So the whole road becomes black, very hard to see the sidelines and even the center line. They reached out, and I'm happy to report that Public Works is aware of the situation, and they are unable to do anything immediately due to obviously snow and winter. It is on the spring-summer work plan to address the issue, and they are exploring some mitigation issues to make it a little more visible throughout the winter months. So I want to thank our staff for responding to that and getting in contact with the province and getting a positive result. I know the residents will appreciate it. The last thing is, right now, we're seeking nominations for community volunteers to be recognized at our Community Volunteer Awards. I don't know how the returns are so far, but I encourage anybody that's part of a nonprofit organization. We all have many members of our community that do a lot of things, the unsung heroes that volunteer their time and do a lot, and it would be really great to have those people recognized. There's a link directly on our webpage where you can fill out the form and have them nominated, and it's something that I feel personally is something that, you know, there are many in the community who don't want to be recognized because they want to stay in the background, but sometimes having that public recognition is more than well deserved. So, in most cases, my time on council, a lot of the people that we've seen come forward on recognition night, it was long overdue. 17, 18, 25, 20 plus years of volunteerism and being recognized. Some volunteers can do stuff within a year or two that deserves recognition as well. So I just ask the public who's watching and the public that's here, if you know anybody within your organizations or communities that has done a lot and should be recognized, please go forward and put those nominations in. Thank you. That's all.
Councillor McPhee?
Thank you. Yes, it's been a fairly quiet last month. Went to a couple of the polling district border reviews, and the Mount Uniacke one was quite quiet, I don't think, but it was interesting to be at the Kennecook one where a lot of people had some good views. It was good to see. You think about it yourself, you talk to other councillors, but it's nice to hear the public and hear what they had to say and see what their take is on it. So really appreciated that. In Shubby, our big issue, it's not actually a municipal issue, but it's been flooding in Shubenacadie and the Mill Village Road and at the courthouse, and I'm quite sure we're going to see flooding again tomorrow. I know there was supposed to be a meeting planned with Public Works today to talk to the residents. I hope that they were able to get some resolution or some idea where they can go to fix this problem. Anyway, those are all the issues that we have in District 4. Thank you.
Councillor Hebb?
Thank you, Madam Warden. I attended 2 of the polling district reviews, and I also attended the annual meeting for the 9 Mile River Community Center. And they're the same as all the other communities out there that having a hard job to raise money. Since COVID, the population doesn't seem to want to leave their houses anymore, and they had to shut bingo down, and Saturday night dances are not creating any money. The only thing that's keeping them going basically is the jamborees they have once a month. And it's an ongoing, hopefully it'll get better. And to Councillor McPhee, maybe you can get a hold of the rafting centers in Maitland. Maybe they can help the Shubby and make some money. So, thank you.
Counselor Eisner.
Thank you, Warden. Yeah, I too was wanting to know what they're gonna do with Shubby. I have some residents up there that I know, and they're kind of tired of the flooded basements. Some of them up hip high water in their basements. I don't know. I thought the government was blaming on the municipal. It was their problem. This is what was in the news, so don't know. This is what you're hearing back and forth, so I'm just curious about that. I mentioned then when we had the police report in the other room the other night about having a light on municipal trucks. It was a bad accident, and as I found out later after that meeting, that there was another car that ran into that car, and I thought it was just one vehicle there, but the person got hurt. But it's just that flashing light, like the buses, if we could put that in the contract, maybe to just put them on the trucks. They're quite effective on the buses, I find. The garbage trucks, right. They're not municipal trucks, right. But it is a contract that they, so would it be much of a cost to put it in that contract if we could make a motion to do something like that?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Warden. I do want to make a comment on the Mill Village Road flooding, just to provide clarity for municipal council. With respect to Mill Village Road, it's a provincial road, and there's municipal assets in the area, and that is the municipal role is we're a stakeholder that's getting information updates as it relates to pipes that are in the ground. Not with relation to the flooding itself. The flooding itself is a combination of, it's a conversation between the province with respect to flooding of the road surface and structures associated with private property ownership, and a dialogue between the province and private property owners and working out that issue to mitigate the flooding challenges in that area. So the municipal staff are aware, but we're not directly involved, and that is the confusion, because the public, it's challenging to keep track of which level of government is handling it. It's just, are you part of the government or not, right? But it is a topic the province has been navigating with private residents, or private property owners, I should say, and residents that are impacted by the floods, which is obviously challenging. Definitely have empathy for those situations. It does not look good. And right now we're from a municipal stance, we were aware of the meeting that Councillor McPhee mentioned. We weren't part of it, and we're receiving information after the fact. So we get updates after the fact where we're not the direct lead. So just wanted everyone to know the clarity of how we're engaged or not engaged, if it will, with respect to that challenging situation in Shubie. Does that make it clear for where we're at?
I hope so for the residents. Maybe they hear about what I'll pass back to them, but they seem that this ball's going back and forth for quite a few years. I don't know. I know there was a culvert that was crushed. I know they cleaned it up. I know they scoped it, but it needs to be replaced apparently.
I don't have an official update through Madam Warden, but I should mention that there was a piece of equipment doing work of some sort there today. Yeah. So I don't know who was leading that, but there was a backhoe digging something. So I'm looking to get an update tomorrow on that, because where we're not the decision maker or instructing the work, we have to follow up with folks after the fact, after the work's been done. And so we're going to look to find that out for awareness purposes tomorrow. And we'll look to update everyone from a information piece tomorrow.
Okay. Were you gonna talk about on the light, on the contract for the waste removal trucks?
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm probably catching Jesse off guard because he wasn't at the RCMP meeting to talk about that, and it's one of the things that I had made note of. We have issued the contracts already for those, so that's something that we can talk about operationally, and if council wants to make that a change to the contract, then we would have to look for probably a motion of council at this time, because it will impact the cost of your contracts and the dollar values we shared with you last night during your budget meetings.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Counselor Mitchell.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Not a very busy month in District 2, Elmsville, Belknap, but a few items. On January the 12th, attend the polling district review here at the Lord Matheson Center. On January 19th, attended the RCMP workshop where we discussed RCMP priorities and also council priorities. On January the 22nd, last Sunday, I attended a celebration of life for fellow Stewiacke Councilor and Library Board member Mary Camo. On the 24th, we had the budget meeting here. Depending on the weather tomorrow, whether I'll attend the NSSM in-person meeting in Halifax. On the last note is regarding the FCM, which is meeting, the Board of Directors are meeting in Ajax, Ontario on March 7th to the 9th. I am making plans to attend in person. We have 2 tours that you are available to the board members, so I chose the tour, which is the Durham York Energy Center tour, which the tour provides information, produces energy from the combustion of garbage, which I know might like, state-of-the-art pollution control systems and proven EFW technology, which I'm not sure what the initials stand for, and I couldn't find it, releasing less greenhouse gas emissions. So that's the tour that I have booked for that Tuesday, March the 7th, and it's getting from the airport to Ajax is the issue now. So, and that's all. Thank you, Madam.
Counselor Gordon Cole.
Thank you, Madam Warden. We hit the ground running in 2023 with a number of meetings, starting with the polling district meetings, an RCMP workshop. We've just started our budget meetings, and I guess I'd like to kind of apologize to the residents of Boyd and Wilson. Road maintenance that was due to be done has just been executed today, so I apologize and hope that they're reaping the benefits of that. I received a number of emails from residents of the unzoned area, and I appreciate that. It keeps their issues that they are concerned about at the forefront of my thoughts, and that's a good thing. To staff, in the fall, we made a motion to write a letter to the Minister of Transportation, I believe, regarding the crosswalk that we've been unable to get. And just wonder the update is on that, or if there's been any movement in regard to that.
Through you, Madam Warden. Right now, from a status stance, I don't believe I honestly, staff, I believe we've missed on it on the timeline. I didn't catch it on the status update. We'll execute it immediately. It'll be out by the end of the week.
Okay, so just to reiterate, that was a motion to request that we meet with the Minister of Transportation regarding a crosswalk that we have been, jumped through hoops trying to obtain, and in that populated area have been unsuccessful. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Counselor Rhino.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just a few things before I move into putting a petition forward. I attended the 3 polling district reviews, and some with good attendance, some with very poor attendance. I was at the RCMP workshop here the other night. Question. Over 13 months ago, a motion was made to install emergency street light at the intersection of the 236 and the 215 in South Maitland, and for layman's purposes, that's the bridge, the road going to the Goss Bridge. I know that there's been some hold up with Nova Scotia Power, but I would endeavor to ask staff, have they been following up on this, and when do we expect this? Because the residents are saying, this was passed and where is it? And it's very much needed. So I'd like their response.
Through Madam Warden, just recently, timely question on that topic. We're just receiving updates now from Nova Scotia Power with respect to permits and catching up on inquiries. They had a major backlog post Fiona on responding to regular day-to-day items. We literally just got updates last week on that, not specifically that one. What will happen on this scenario for this safety light? The intent of the street lights is that there's a set fee for it, and if the cost is more than the anticipated fee, we'll have to come back to council, because the intent of the individual safety light is that it's a fixed cost. If there's additional cost for power, we'll have to come back and say, is this something that council wants to spend on with additional costs, which we're anticipating there will be. There's some potential secondary wiring additional cost with this one. So once we have that information directly from NSP, we're going to bring back information to council saying, do you want to spend this additional funds on this specific location? But until we get that information from Nova Scotia Power, we can't give that price and bring that back in front of council. But that is the current status. I'm anticipating that to be coming very soon now that Nova Scotia Power is in correspondence with us.
If I may, okay, when I made that motion, I don't remember any set amount being put on that motion. You're telling me now that there is, but seems to me it must have been forgotten, or it wasn't put out there. So it's a dangerous intersection, and it's poor. It's total black, and there's several have gone through and across the other side, and one printer went into the flooded area there when the tide was in. So, yes, okay, if you want to bring it back to council, but I would have appreciated a dollar amount that what we usually spend on these. So it's not a surprise when I hear this tonight. So have we anticipated costing time, install time? If we do go ahead with it, what have we got anything? I know Nova Scotia Power is a very hard outfit to deal with currently.
The CAO may have some information, Counselor.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Counselor, I think at the time that the request came forward, we did mention that there may be additional costs and that we would come back to council if we needed to, beyond the amount that's set out in the standard policy that we have. Your status update reports dating back a few months anyway have indicated that we're waiting on Nova Scotia Power and that we're reassessing the options for cost because that secondary wire required for the pole isn't there. So at this point, we are at the mercy of Nova Scotia Power, and that this is typical if there are new lights being installed and that infrastructure isn't there to install them, that we would have to come back to council. So our apologies for it being delayed, but this really is something that we had very little control over timing.
Where do we stand? My question again, where do we stand with approximately getting something out there so we can get closer to making another decision if it's going to cost?
I think, Counselor, it's been explained, we're waiting for that costing from Nova Scotia Power.
So we've got no estimate of time. They could be 6 months to a year then to give us that price, I guess, is what you're telling me?
Through Madam Warden, we are waiting on Nova Scotia Power. We do a check-in back with them, as typically happens at least once a month, just checking in, and until they provide us updated information with an action, we're at their whim, if you will.
All right, I'll have to wait a little longer, I guess, so thank you for that information. All right, I have before me a petition that I would like to put forth to council and to put into the record, if I may. It comes with a cover letter, and also I can read the petition itself, the heading for it, if I have your permission. To whom it may concern, this is a petition that the people of North Zone of East Hants signed over the course of a few days to show our disapproval with the restrictive proposed AR zoning for our area. We have 543 signatures as of today, and this letter was written January 17, 2023. The proposed zoning will in no way make current farming operations more viable. The AR designation dramatically lowers the value of our land, one of our biggest assets. This would also prevent any potential new farmers from being able to get into the agricultural business because they wouldn't be able to get the financial capital needed to start off. If farming will no longer be viable, it should not be a lifestyle forced upon landowners of the area. Even those of us who are farming are now wondering if we will be at the last generation or if it will be profitable to continue at all. In addition, a lot of the land designated AR belongs to people who do not farm, have no interest in farming, have no farm equipment, nor could they even think of being able to afford to start farming. This leaves them with the land they had other plans for being essentially worthless to them if this zoning plan moves forward. Many of these pieces of land have been in the owners' families for generations and have only been kept cleared off, often at the owner's expense. Other pieces of land in the proposed AR category will have been recently purchased by people in hopes that someday that they will be able to build a home. In many instances, these people have paid a high price for the land that will be devalued by this designation. The AR designation will change this area. Many of these properties have been in the residents' families for generations. It was their hope that their children would be able to come back and build on their land. Now families are having to change their future plans. What will happen to the schools, businesses, and churches in the area if there's no generation of people to keep them going? If you cannot build on the land designated AR, the economic growth of this area will die. This is an expropriation without compensation. Please accept this petition as a show of solidarity that is, we in the Northeast Hants object to and find the AR designation unacceptable. The petition itself reads that with signatures here, and I have them, and I'll read you this. The petition concerning the introduction of zoning to the north section of the municipality of East Hants. The municipality of East Hants is in the process of introducing a community plan to zone the majority of the shore from Walton to Maitland as agricultural resource, AR. There are concerns associated with this zoning, including its impact on non-farming property owners, its impact on future availability of housing, and its impact on the sustainability and economic viability of the farming industry. We, the undersigned, are opposed to the adoption of the AR zone on our properties because of the negative impact to our area. We are requesting the municipalities of East Hants adopt the rural use zone instead, and these are signed by, as I stated before, 543. I'd like to enter this into, present this and enter this into the record, if I could. It's quite evident here tonight by the show in the gallery that this group is very concerned about this, you know, and I've heard a lot of stuff, you know, and I thought a lot about it, received emails and so on and so forth. Like, it just doesn't fit. It's forced upon us by the province to zone it something. We're way too restrictive in these, and, you know, for me, I would like to see subdivisions, 1 or 2 at least, come in our area. But if there's no land for developers to come in and do that, our area is gonna die. When these people, and myself included, when we get it of the age that we're very close to the end, there may not be anybody coming after that because of the restrictions that have been brought forward. Devaluation of land is front and center. People bought land, and now they're gonna be told that it could possibly be AR, and not much they can do with it. So I'm gonna try to move a motion. I'm gonna move to remove the AR designation in the unplanned area of the municipality from the community planning review and replace it with rural use 2.
Okay, I didn't hear who seconded that first. Counselor Garden Cole, seconded by Counselor Garden Cole. Is there any discussion on the motion? Deputy Warden.
Just wondering where, you know, we have multiple reports going back on this to committee because no final decision has been made. Because there still was the legality issue of what was told to us here in this council chamber. Can we entertain this motion, or would that have us in contradiction to the order from the Minister of?
Counselor Rhino?
Yes, I do believe that if you're talking about what they put out for provinces' thoughts on agricultural land, those were only guidelines. They're not set in stone, and they're not. And it's my opinion that the province wanted this. And the only reason they put it down for us to deal with is because of the negative, they knew the negative impact it was going to have. So they didn't want to be the bad guy. My opinion is, let's put it back to rural use 2, send it to the province, put it in their court. Then if they say no, it has to be something else, then it will come back. Then we'll go through those pieces of paper of the people who wrote in asking to be removed from because they're not real farm properties. So those were only guidelines.
Counselor Musa.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Speaking in support of the motion. This area had been on the, I mean, they lived all their life without internet. You couldn't buy a home down there. Finally, they got internet, they got some value for their land, and now we're doing this. I think RU zone, you could do any agriculture in RU zone. If somebody want to farm, they can farm in RU zone and without losing the value of their land. I think that's a good zone for that area. Thank you.
Counselor Tingley.
Through the chair, I don't have any problem with the motion, but I'm just wondering, do we know if we can legally, I'm wondering if we can legally make this type of motion, like
Yes, we can.
Deputy Chair, I'd like to have a legal opinion before we make a vote on it.
No legal opinion is required. It's a duly moved motion by a counselor in a meeting of council. and
So
it
we
is-
can make a motion that's
Yes.
potentially against provincial.
We can make the motion, we can submit our plan to the province. They then have the option of accepting what we've presented or of refusing to accept it, and there could be some risk they would do it themselves. I would suspect they would send it back and say, this isn't suitable, do something different. But we do have the ability to submit whatever this council feels is appropriate in the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Deputy Warden.
Thank you, and that was my concern, because my concern is, if we send it to the province, that they would do something without consultation to us or the public, on their own. I want to make sure that, you know, we don't, put it in a situation where there will be no say from the community or us in how things move forward. So as long as that is not a risk, you know, that's my biggest concern.
Councillor Green.
Just a comment. As one person in the gallery had said at one of the meetings, there are no pressures for development on the rural side for this agricultural land. There's no large developers wanting to build 3 or 4-story apartment buildings. No, there's not. These properties have been in families for years. No, it is. And some people, when they get to the end and they don't want to farm anymore, there they are, saddled with the retirement that they cannot access, which somebody may buy for a waterfront lot. No, it is. And as to the Deputy Warden's comment about the province maybe doing it, they very well could. They very well could decide that we're done tomorrow, all of us. That's within their power. We have no control over that. But what we do have control over is sending the wishes of these people here and the residents forward to them to say, hey, this is enough. Like, this isn't going to work. Those are my comments.
Councillor Head.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm in support of the motion, for sure. My question through you to staff, there is a timeline attached to this planning review. What would happen if we sent this in and it would take government a while to look at it and then send it back, and whatever the answer may be, if our timeline is up, what is the recourse then? If there would be a recourse.
Through you, Madam Warden, I don't think that would be an issue. If we've already submitted our draft documents and we've met our requirement, and I don't think, you know, however long it takes the province to review them, send them back to us would be an issue with the requirement to, I mean, at that point, you've gone through your planning exercise.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Garden Cole.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I mean, it is a risk to send this in, but it's a risk that we've determined that we have to take. It would be more of a risk to not submit this. And, you know, I think that we've come to the conclusion that what we initially were proposing is just not acceptable. And so we had to go another route. And we'll send this in and hope that they concur. It's got the backing of, I'm hoping, our council, and I mean, we have to show the support of our council for the zoning that we're putting in on behalf of our residents, and hope that that's enough, and deal with it as best we can if it isn't. But I mean, it's a risk that we have to take. So that's all from me. Thanks.
Councillor Rhino.
Yeah, I want to be perfectly clear, by moving to rural use 2, that removes those restrictions that tagged along with the with the agriculture reserve thing. So I just want to make that perfectly clear, so where we're headed. I don't want any surprises going down. Well, those restrictions have to stay. No, they're gone, if this motion passes. Thank you.
Seeing no one left to speak, I would ask the Deputy Warden to take the chair.
Go ahead, Warden.
Speaking in support of the motion, and I've thought long and hard about it, because as others have mentioned, there is some risk in this, but there's risk in everything we do in life. And as a risk management person told me one time, there's risk in everything, but that doesn't mean when you go to bed at night you sleep with one foot out on the floor in case there's a fire and you have to flee. So I think our responsibility here is to follow through and do as we've been directed by the province and submit land use planning for the currently unzoned area. They have guidelines they want us to pay attention to, and I think we've paid attention to them. But the folks who elected us to come here and represent them do not feel that what we have presented is appropriate for the area. So when it comes down to a choice for me in supporting what the people whose lives are going to be affected feel should be done, and what the provincial government, for whatever reason, feels should be done, I'm going to vote with what the people who are going to be affected feel. And I just want to be clear to people, though, that there is some risk that should the province not approve our plan, they have the ability to implement something themselves that none of us may like. They have that ability. Do I think they will do that? I hope not, and I don't think they will, because they are, at the end of the day, they're politicians as well. I think what they would probably do would be to kick it back to us and say, do something different. That's just what I think. We don't know. But having said that, and having heard from residents from my area, from all other areas, I'm prepared to support this and to move forward with this and see where it takes us, and hope that our provincial government recognizes that we worked very hard to create a plan. We did look at everything they told us to look at, and this is what we've come up with that is acceptable to council and to the residents that we represent. So that's where my vote is going. Thank you.
Question's been called.
And the motion has passed unanimously. Anything further, Councillor Reinhardt?
No, now I can sleep for a while. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes, CAO.
Through Madam Warden, I think John has his microphone on too. He's probably going to ask the same two questions I'm going to ask. I'll give a stab at it. So you do have a report coming back in February on your zones. I assume you don't need that anymore?
No.
Okay.
I would suggest that we keep the reports we have and the information that we have and the letters we have, that we keep those on file, because we may have to go to a Plan B.
But you don't want us to generate new reports on this for
Not at
further
this time.
discussion?
Not at this time.
I would also request confirmation that you repeal the motion you made this evening to send the letters out to the 6,000 residents regarding AR? Or actually, it's not just AR, is it? It would be just the AR ones that wouldn't get sent out. You still want those letters sent out for the other?
That's a decision of council, whether or not we feel we need to send individual letters about the other types of zoning, or if it was simply the AR that we felt needed to generate those individual letters. So, council.
They will get letters, Madam Warden, once the next stage of the process happens. They will all get letters regarding the changes in their zoning. These were sort of pre-letters to the letters. And I do believe it was driven by the agricultural zoning requirements to be more clear.
Okay. Deputy Warden?
I was going to echo what the CAO said, because we already know a part of the process. Once the plan is finalized, before we submit it, we send out a letter for all the new property owners so they know what their new zoning is going to be. And we had passed a motion to send out a pre-letter before the final plan had been done, to basically they get, this is what's in the works and then this is the final. So I think we can repeal that first letter and just wait till the final plan and send it out once. I will move that we repeal the first letter and that we only send out the final letter upon ratification of council of the final plan.
Moved and seconded. Okay, John?
Just to be clear, when you say ratification, you mean give first reading prior to a public hearing? That's what we intended to do originally, to send letters out at that
That's what I
point?
mean, sorry.
Counselor Rhino?
Well, I guess, my motion it passed, but there is still concerns about the flood zone and erosion zones out there. So there are concerns still out there. They're not as, I'm not hearing those as highly as I did the AR, right? So there's gonna be still gonna be some discussion around those. But I just want to keep those letters on file, and, depending on what, the province accepts this, fine, we're good. But if they send it back to us and say, no, you've got to do something different, whatever that something is, at least those letters would be on file. But I expected we will be notifying the public if, I know I will be, and the rest of my counselors will, I would assume. But, that this has to go back to the drawing board. So we'll have those, and we may have to ask for new letters at that time, depending what they're stating they want, if they want anything at all.
And I would just say that the process allows for any members of the public to submit any questions or concerns by email, by letter mail, by phone call, at any time. And I do know that at times it has seemed that perhaps we said we were listening, but we weren't hearing you. But the wheels of bureaucracy turn slowly sometimes, and I can assure you that we were listening and we did hear you. And I think now we have done the internal work that we have to do, and we've decided on this path forward. So there is a motion on the floor that we will not send out the individual letters that we reviewed earlier. We would repeal that motion. With the understanding we are still sending letters out prior to the public hearing with the other zoning information. Are you ready for the question? And the motion is passed unanimously.
One, I was still good on that.
Did you have,
One more, yeah.
okay, Deputy Warden has some comments?
So when it comes to the reports, one of the reports that we looked at was, it wasn't just specific to the rezoning, it was actually at our own zoning in comparison to our neighbors. When we looked at identifying what the agricultural zone restrictions are in our common neighbors. I think that is still something that we need to have on the book somewhere, because I think at some point we're going to have to look at the agricultural zone overall for the municipality and see where that fits. So I would still be in favor of that judicial scan, which was sent out to be asked for by PAC, still be done so the report and things are there for us to go moving forward.
Because we do have other areas of the municipality with agricultural zoning, and that jurisdictional scan might well be something to use with those. So we already have that on. So is that agreed that staff will go ahead with the jurisdictional scan report? Agreed? Okay.
And that's all I have, Warden. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Councillor Rhino? Okay, that brings us to the only thing that is left on the agenda, other than setting the date and time of the next council meeting, is a brief in-camera session to discuss a land issue that has been in front of council. So in order to do that, I would be looking for a motion to go in camera.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Green, seconded by Councillor Musa. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary? We are going in camera. We will take a few minutes and give the public time to, yes, 5 minutes break. Allow the public to leave and councillors to coming forward from that discussion. So our next item would be to set the time and date of the next council meetings, February the 14th, 2023 for the regular meeting of council policy and in camera, and February 22nd for the regular meeting of council.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. I'd now be looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary, motion is